Nelly Furtado's third album, Loose, is a defining record of the 2000s. Not only was it stacked with hit singles that are still well known to this day, but its diverse blend of genres, along with Nelly's effortlessly cool performance, make it truly one of a kind. Released in 2006, Loose was Nelly's attempt at having a more mainstream, accessible album. At this point in her career, Nelly was seen as a slightly left-of-center artist. While she had huge hits, such as I'm Like a Bird and Turn Off the Light, she definitely wasn't the most traditional pop star. Her music was a tightly produced, heavily layered collection of alternative and folksy tracks. For Loose, she decided to go in another direction. While she'd continue drawing inspiration from multiple genres, Loose would be a departure from the more serious tone of her first two albums. The title itself is a reflection of this, as Nelly stated that the album would be less calculated. To achieve the sound she wanted, she primarily worked with producers Timbaland, Danja, and Jim Beans. Timbaland's signature R&B style is very prominent throughout this record and helps give the tracks sonic consistency despite the multiple genres they take influence from. His presence is most obviously felt in the song Promiscuous, a flirty duet between him and Nelly. This song is a classic, overflowing with quotable lines and a playful but still sexy energy. Nelly wrote the song with the rapper Attitude and said that they were actually flirting with each other while writing, which explains why the song is how it is. That lighthearted, jokey feeling definitely translates to the song, as Timbaland and Nelly play off each other really well and sound like they're genuinely having fun. The electro R&B production is especially well done, with the sparse drum beat of the verses giving plenty of space for the two singers to shine, while the synth-heavy chorus works as the focal point of the song. Promiscuous still goes off to this day. If you haven't duetted it with one of your friends, you simply have not lived. The song topped the US Hot 100, making it her first #1 hit. This was a strong way to introduce Nelly's new looser public image, and the next single, Maneater, would continue that. An in-your-face dance pop song, Maneater plays into the stereotype of a gold-digging woman, and Nelly's brash performance, mixed with the blaring production, really sells that fantasy. This is probably my favorite Nelly Furtado song. It's just impossible to not feel like a bad bitch when it comes on. In an interview, she described it as a song you dance to in front of a mirror while checking yourself out, and that's the best description I've ever heard for it. It's the type of song that gives you a confidence boost and makes you feel like you're the hottest person in the room, even if the room is your bathroom and you're the only one in there. Side note, but Nelly actually featured on the song this year by Dom Dolla called Eat Your Man, which obviously references Maneater, as well as some of her other songs, and that song is a bop. It's basically a song from Loose if it was made for the clubs. Definitely check it out if you love dance music. Both Maneater and Promiscuous will be met with some controversy back when they first released, with some people criticizing Nelly's new sexually charged image as a way to drum up sales, because as we all know, women can't be sexual without ulterior motives. Yeah, it's easy to see nowadays this criticism was mostly baseless. So what if she started feeling herself a little bit more and wanted to express that through her music? And while I definitely agree that selling more records was a motivator for her image change, I truly think she was still making the music she wanted to make, as Loose is an extremely unique album that I can't picture any other artist singing. This is apparent from the opening track, Afraid, a haunting rock and hip-hop song about being afraid of what people think of you and the difficulties that come with finding your inner strength. She said it reminded her of walking down the hallway in high school and being worried about other people's opinions. I've always thought of this song as her explaining her nervousness about her image change and how it would go over with audiences. The fact that it's the first track really makes me think that that was the point, and honestly, it's a brilliant way to start the record since it gives a glimpse into her mindset going into this era. Afraid is one of my favorite Loose tracks. It's not only relatable in its subject matter, but the production creates a spooky, chilling atmosphere that's not too commonly heard in pop music. The same can be said for Say It Right, another single from Loose. It actually was released on Halloween, so they clearly knew what they were doing. This is one of the most unique #1 hits from the 2000s. It truly sounds like no other music from the time. From the gothic-sounding vocals looming in the background, the oppressive drum beat, and Nelly's sorrowful performance, the song creates an eerie atmosphere that sets it apart from contemporary hits. It was inspired by 80s music, specifically the band Eurythmics, and that new wave influence is easy to see. Another 80s inspired track was the song Do It, which was also a single. This song has kind of been overshadowed by the other singles, and it feels like no one remembers it, and I'm guilty of that too because I always forget how great it is. While Say It Right drew inspiration from new wave 80s music, Do It draws inspiration from the synthy dance pop of the 80s. It wouldn't sound out of place on Madonna's first two albums, with its electronic chiptune beat and Nelly's bubbly performance. It's so animated, lighthearted, and girly, and that's what makes it such a joy to listen to. This is a song you throw on when you're getting ready to go out. It just has that vibe. Do It was actually the subject of a legal battle, as it was alleged that Timbaland plagiarized elements from a song called Acid Jazzed Evening. They do sound similar, but I don't know, I never really thought they sounded just like each other. Maybe I'm not listening close enough, but I feel like there's plenty of similar sounding songs, and this never struck me as being the most blatant ripoff. Timbaland did say he sampled the song, but the artist behind Acid Jazzed Evening didn't get any credit for it, and honestly that is pretty sucky. He should have at least gotten a producing credit. I'm thinking the fact that Do It was the lowest charting single from Loose was due to bad karma for sampling without giving proper credit. Another song, Wait For You, would also be the subject of a plagiarism case, as it was alleged that Timbaland stole the beat from a Turkish folk singer. Once again, I don't think it's a blatant ripoff, but I definitely hear the similarity. While the case surrounding Do It was eventually settled out of court, I couldn't find anything else regarding Wait For You's case aside from the initial news report. Irregardless, Wait For You is one of my favorite Loose songs. The beat, plagiarized or not, is so good, and the folksy, Middle Eastern inspired production really makes it stand out. It's not lyrically the deepest song or anything, but I actually think that makes it even better. It reads like a love letter, explaining how intense Nelly's feelings are towards this man, and how she'd wait for him to come around on her, even if it takes until the end of the world. There's something very classical about it. It sounds like a speech you'd hear in a Shakespeare play, with how dramatic it is. On the more depressing side of things, the song In God's Hand was released as the final single in the UK, marking the end of the Loose era. In God's Hand is arguably the saddest song here, as it's about the end of her previous relationship with the man she had her daughter with. The song is incredibly touching. Nelly sounds like she's at peace with her breakup, but still sad that it happened, which somehow makes the song that much more devastating. The line, "Our love's up in the sky in heaven, where it began, back in God's hands," is so simple, but so heart-wrenching. I feel my own heart breaking listening to this song. I can't even think about the lyrics without tearing up. A similar, albeit slightly less sad track is All Good Things Come to an End, which actually features Chris Martin from Coldplay. Now I did say slightly less sad, because this is a song I've cried to a few times. The line that gets me the most is in the second verse, when she says, "I want to pull away when the dream dies, the pain sets in, and I don't cry, I only feel gravity, and I wonder why." I interpret this lyric as her going emotionally numb as a defense mechanism, and that cuts a little too close for me. I truly feel attacked. Like the other tracks, All Good Things creates a haunting atmosphere, especially in the sing-songy bridge, which sounds like it's straight out of a horror movie. The song was apparently a huge hit in Europe, but it only reached number 86 on the US Hot 100, once again showing the tastelessness of this country. Loose had two Spanish singles as well, No Hay Igual and Te Busque. No Hay Igual is a bop. That chorus is like a drug. Once you hear it, you'll be going back for more. It's one of the most upbeat tracks, taking inspiration from reggaeton music. Apparently, Pharrell Williams introduced her to reggaeton, and she got inspired to make a song in that genre, which led to No Hay Igual. God bless you, Pharrell, for being responsible for this song's existence. I remember I used to be able to sing the whole song in Spanish, but now all I could do is the chorus. I was in high school when I first heard it, and taking Spanish at the time, so maybe that's why it was a little easier for me to learn it. The other Spanish single, Te Busque, is a duet with Colombian musician Juanes. The song is about Nelly's experiences with depression, and how she found meaning in her life after searching for so long. Even though it's a duet, I don't think this was meant to be about Nelly and Juanes finding each other. To me, it sounds like Nelly's spiritual awakening and how she found God after going through a severe depression. Even though on the surface, it might seem like a typical dramatic pop ballad, there's a lot more to read into that makes the song truly fascinating as a look into her mind. I think that's what makes Loose in general such an amazing album. While it's easy to look at the singles, videos, and her public image for this era as an attempt at mainstream popularity, Loose is still a much deeper album than it gets credit for. It may not be as experimental as her previous works, but there's still a mysterious, almost otherworldly vibe to it that makes it seriously memorable. She described it as having an after midnight feel, and I definitely get that as well. It gives me the vibe of leaving a Miami club at 3 a.m. and driving around after there's been a rainstorm, with mist coming up from the pavement and neon lights reflecting off the wet streets. I don't know if that makes sense to anyone else, but that's just the scene that comes to my mind when I think about this album. It's equal parts fun and carefree as it is dark and ominous. Of course there's bops such as Glow, Do It, and Maneater, but tracks like Say It Right and Afraid have an almost supernatural quality to them, and it's crazy to me that such an eclectic mix of songs created such a hugely successful era. I could just keep going on and on about this album. I didn't even get into the B-sides and bonus tracks, which are just as good as the other songs. From the extremely sexy Let My Hair Down, the soul-crushing What I Wanted, and the absurdly underrated Runaway, one of my favorite songs from Loose. This album is truly a cut above the rest. Not only did she prove that she could sell the Queen of Pop fantasy, but she did it on her terms. No one else can make an album like Loose, as Timbaland's genius production brings Nelly's songwriting and mystical presence to life. Loose is a classic, a staple of 2000s music that I truly believe will live on for decades to come.